Welcome once again. At this point, welcome our YouTube audience, members, non-members, visitors alike. Welcome to Ujima Wednesdays, where we're focused on financial and political education through co-creation with our members and visitors. And so tonight, specifically, this is the part 2 of our voting conversation. Last week, feel free to check out the video that was also recorded. And that should be on our YouTube channel, specifically talking a little bit more about the results of the vote and feedback from our community, so particularly our voters. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about what's the next step. What does that look like? What is the plan for the current list of small businesses that were nominated to be invested in or were not? And I am going to sidestep and allow Nia to lead us. And if there's anybody else that I didn't mention that's leading this conversation, I apologize.
Thank you, Johnny. Sierra's going to be tag teaming with me a bit on this. Thank you very much. I appreciate that very nice framing. So I'm actually going to share my screen so that you can follow along. And I'll just say up front, this conversation has the potential to be confusing. I'm going to try my best to make it not so. So this is part of what the share screen is about. And I'm going to be just speaking a little bit slowly, just because I just want to kind of make sure I'm not giving you all just a tumble of information that's kind of hard to sort through. But I'll share the screen now. Okay. Can everybody see this? And should I make this kind of full screen, or is this fine? Sierra, you look like you were unmuting.
I was, but full screen, yes. Thank you, Paige.
Okay. All right, cool. I just see something pop up in the chat, but I didn't see what it said. Just a second. Okay, so let me make this full screen. And do I just do that by doing present? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so as you all know, and as we talked about last week, and Johnny just reviewed really quickly, we May 7th wrapped up our, I want to say this was our 5th vote on a 2021 citywide assembly plan. We opened it officially March 2nd. Some people had a chance to vote in person, so to speak, at our We Be Knowing assembly in February, but formally, officially, it was open from March 2nd to May 7th. Again, just by way of review, our quorum for a vote to be binding, whatever that decision is for 50% plus one of our voting members to participate. And in this vote, we did not reach quorum. As an aside, this is actually the second vote. This is just some interesting background information, I think, that we haven't reached quorum on. The first vote that we did not reach quorum on was part of, some people may remember, an epic kind of voting package that we rolled out at the beginning of 2019, where we unveiled 3 ballots at once. And the third ballot was on investment partnerships. And this was asking members, do we have permission to kind of form investment partnerships with certain peers who can then name businesses to us? So it was just asking for permission to institute another process to get businesses into the pipeline. And we almost reached quorum on that. I think we're probably maybe just about 5 votes shy. But again, if people who were around then can remember, that was a really long voting process. And by the time it ended, we weren't there. And we made an important decision to close it and to say we've got to call this one a failure. So that's just some quick history, some quick background. So then question is, well, what happens to this list now? If you look at what's up here, you'll see that there are 3 categories of lists. So one is potential investment plans. In brief, or in terms of an overview, this is a list of businesses that we have assembled that are not yet investment plans. They've not yet been ratified. They've not yet been put to a vote. And so that's why they are potential investment plans, but they are different lists that we can consider. The second group is active investment plans. And right now we have 3 in the email that we sent out last week and in our voting debrief. I think we talked about this really quickly just to say, even though our most recent vote, we did not reach quorum on, it doesn't mean we don't have marching orders, or it doesn't mean that we don't already have work that we are engaged in. So we do have right now 3 active investment plans. We have a Dorchester investment plan that was ratified in 2019 as a part of that epic vote that I mentioned. We also have a Mattapan investment plan that was also ratified in 2019, again, a part of that vote. And we also have a Roxbury investment plan that was also ratified in 2019, and again, was a part of that epic vote. And again, as a reminder, this was also why the bulk of our, not the bulk of our feedback, but we definitely had a couple of questions as to why there were not a lot of Roxbury or Dorchester or Mattapan list businesses on the citywide list. And it was because we already had 3 active lists that were specific to those neighborhoods. And so very specifically, the citywide plan was to address businesses outside of Dorchester, outside of Mattapan, and outside of Roxbury. And so you'll see this last category now is inactive investment lists. And so what will happen with this list now is it gets moved to the inactive corner, so to speak, or there's a way in which we can kind of say it gets moved to the back of the line. We're using the frame inactive because we don't necessarily want to say it now gets moved to a dead last position, because, and I'll get into this later, our future decision-making could have us moving this list up for one reason or another. And I can't see the chat, so I definitely would appreciate some help. Okay, I see full screen, full screen. Okay, great. If any questions pop up in the chat, definitely appreciate some help kind of flagging me so that I can see that. So in short, what happens now with this 2021 citywide investment list, as I said, is it's now on an active list. And when we're thinking about which lists we're putting up for a vote in the future, it will be part of consideration, but it is right now deprioritized. So let me go back to potential investment plans in terms of what's next. So what's next is in our assembly process is we're going to be now looking at one or more of some of these lists in our next assembly. And I just say or more because James Van Boy, who's not here with us tonight, who's our chief of staff, asked in one of our staff meetings, is it possible that we visit a couple of lists at a time? And absolutely it is. So again, I mentioned the epic vote that we did in 2019. In that vote, we looked at the Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury list all at the same time. So it is possible that in our decision making, we can decide to kind of prioritize a couple rather than just one list. But here are our possibilities. We have a business-to-business list that was assembled, and when I say assembled, meaning we had some type of convening or gathering or assembly or some type of process where a list of business names is generated. And so this was assembled in 2020 in July at our To Possess Freedom Once Again assembly. And we did a business-to-business assembly in partnership with Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, BECMA. And so there are a few businesses that are on that list that we can take a look at and that we can say, let's look at this list next and put it to members for a vote. Business to business, very specifically, the way that worked was that assembly was focused on business owners. And the reason that we wanted to do that, this was our second business to business assembly. We had our first one in 2018 in partnership with Black Economic Justice Institute. And there were 2 primary reasons that we wanted to do a business to business assembly. This was to allow us to think further up the supply chain. So there are some business to consumer businesses that business owners will patronize. And we also know, depending on the industry and depending on the business and depending on the need, the product or the service, there are some businesses that really their primary customer is other businesses that they will patronize. And these businesses are not always visible to regular consumers. So for example, we think about things like if you look at a cafe, just giving a quick example, it's not necessarily the best example, but if you look around at all the things that are in a cafe, for example, you might wonder, where do they get all their napkins from? Or, where do they get all of their utensils? Who does their kind of point of, how do they do their point of sales purchases? What company do they work with to work on that? And so some of us may think of those kinds of things, but definitely it's not necessarily common if it's not something that we're encountering in our daily lives. And so we definitely started to notice pretty early on in our assembly process, when we saw the types of businesses that were named, it made sense. It did accord with what people are very familiar with and what people see. But some businesses, again, because of who their primary customers are and how they do business, they're not necessarily super visible to the general public. And so this business to business list is us going to business owners and asking them about their benefits. And again, that was assembled in 2020. Our second list is what I'm calling the Dorchester Second Time Around list. And this was assembled in 2019. And this is the same for the Mattapan Second Time Around and Roxbury Second Time Around, all assembled at the same time. And what we did there was, when we were doing our epic vote, we wanted to give people who did not have a chance to join us in person at the previous assemblies where businesses were named, to name businesses themselves. And so whoever completed a ballot then, they had an opportunity to name 3 businesses in each of those neighborhoods. And so for each of those neighborhoods, we have what I'm calling, again, a second time around list for each one. So those are some future lists that we can visit. We did a youth assembly in partnership with the Charlestown High Diploma Plus program in the summer of 2019. This was an assembly that was completely planned, organized, and implemented by the youth in that program. And they did 2 pieces. They did one with their parents, which was funny, and then one just themselves. And so we actually have what we could call a youth list that was assembled in 2019. We also did an assembly with Women of Color Weekend, which is focused on queer women of color. I think you saw the flyer for their programming happening this summer in Provincetown. So it's a great community building event that happens in Provincetown every summer. And so we were one of the sponsors in 2019. We did an assembly there. And so I just called this Women of Color Weekend LGBTQ+ list. I see you unmuted yourself, Johnny.
I was just letting you know that there was a question in the chat from Lady. Are the plans open to investment suggestions? Second time plans, that is.
Let's great question, Lady, and let's hold that. So what I'll say is, short answer, no, not these specific plans. But we are creating space to add additional businesses. And so we'll talk about that a little later. Thank you for that question, Lady. And that was also assembled in 2019. So as I said, we did that in the summer of 2019. So these are all, the 1 through 6 are all lists that have been generated in past assemblies that, again, we'll have to look at, and we'll say, okay, what do we want to now prioritize? What do we want to look at? When we were talking about this during our staff meeting, I think maybe it was last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago, it definitely felt like the business to business list was emerging as a priority. Again, just thinking about supply chain, thinking about diversity of business services and products. And we were thinking, we have a Dorchester plan, we have a Mattapan plan, we have a Roxbury plan, so that can probably wait a little bit. We did not do active consideration of a youth plan or LGBTQ plan because it hadn't been mentioned at that time. So I didn't mention it at that time. What are also possibilities are moving forward. Okay, and I think I see something in the chat. Yep, so someone asked, the plans seem to be long lists of businesses. What is an investment plan? Will the fund make investments in all of the businesses? If not, how will we decide which ones? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So essentially, the plan is lists of loan businesses. We also, part of the plan are list of needs that community members identify. And then once that's ratified, there is a process that helps us determine which businesses we're going to invest in. So will the fund make investments in all of these businesses? Definitely not. So I should also say the fund um, in our kind of beginning projections, and it's not changed yet, but we are doing some reviews, has about a 10-year horizon. So we should just uh, keep that in mind that, for example, we're probably going to finish our raise this year. And so, for example, you will probably hear less about fundraising, but there's still a lot of years for us to be thinking about what we do with the resources that we have. And again, we're looking at a 10-year horizon for this. And then just really quickly, how do we decide which ones? Our process is in a ratified plan, we reach out, we make contact with businesses, and we see if they are interested in joining the Business Alliance, which is what makes them eligible for investment from the fund. If they are, they actually have to apply to join our Business Alliance. And the first step in that is a community standards screening process. And these are 36 minimum community standards that have been derived by community members. And so at that point is where we will see some businesses may not make it. And I don't know if someone has a link handy to drop it into the chat. So that you can see what the standards are. So that's one kind of trough, for lack of a better word, where some businesses kind of get weeded out from this list. And the Community Standards Committee makes an invitation to a business to join the Alliance if they pass the screen. And then at that point, we then learn what the business's needs are. Not all businesses will need investment. So we do want businesses in our alliance who have different resources, have varying needs, so that they're able to provide peer support for each other. So it's not our expectation that every single business in our alliance is one that's seeking investment. So that's kind of then a second milestone, so to speak, where some businesses are kind of, they weed themselves out of the investment process by saying, I don't need investment. And then we're left with the businesses who have said we do need investment, and at that point we start working with them. So I just want to go through the rest of this list here. Number 7 through 10, that's now looking forward. These processes have not happened yet. And so you'll see in 7, 8, and 9, I say maybe art, which will be assembling later this year. So we are planning an assembly in October or November of this year. And the reason I say maybe art is because we are going to be doing an art assembly. We're still working out what the format of that assembly will be. It may end up with a list of businesses, but we don't know yet. And I'll pause to give Sierra a moment to jump in and actually just talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing with the art assembly, or we're also calling it a cultural assembly this fall.
Thank you, Nia. So as Nia mentioned, this fall, we're going to be partnering, or we will be having an art space assembly. So we'll be partnering with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and several other organizations to launch the Arts Assembly, as well as a participatory granting process. So in 2018, y'all may remember when Ujima launched, we did have a short, well, it wasn't very short, but it was a micro granting process where 5 artists were given $500 each to jumpstart a project. This year, we're going to be bumping those levels up a little bit, and we're looking to support more artists. But in addition to that, as Nia mentioned, the assembly process, we are all about building power amongst artists. And so part of our wish with this assembly, or part of our goals, is to figure out how to do some skill building and organizing amongst the BIPOC artists here. So maybe that is a needs process. Perhaps that is a, just like the business-to-business assembly, something similar to that, where we ask artists, who needs investment, or which businesses do they purchase from, et cetera, what their favorite businesses are, the businesses that they love. But that is it. Building power and community amongst
Cool.
BIPOC artist community.
Yeah, thank you, Sierra. So we're actually, really excited to be able to revisit this arts granting process again in partnership with the city, and we're looking to bring on some new partners and also be able to, I think, give larger amounts to the artist as well. So yeah, so maybe there's a list there that we're looking at. Also have maybe a new neighborhood list. And again, this just says we don't know the format of the assembly yet. Previously, we were clear it was probably going to be a new neighborhood. Neighborhoods that we have in mind are East Boston, Austin, Brighton, and Jamaica Plain. And when we do neighborhood assemblies, we align them with our grassroots partners. And so that's how we determine where a neighborhood assembly takes place. It's based on our grassroots partner, and where they have trusted presence, and they generally kind of let us know when they're ready to do something. And so one of our grassroots partners, Matahari, they're Austin Brighton is a pretty big area for them, and so that's where we get Austin Brighton. Another grassroots partner, CCDS, and Nube are in East Boston, and they have previously indicated that they think they'd be ready to host an assembly. And then, of course, our anchor grassroots partner, City Life, is in Jamaica Plain. And there are other neighborhoods that are possible. So we've had some Hyde Park residents, for example, ask about an assembly there. And so we've started to think about what it looks like when members make requests for assemblies in their neighborhoods. And so again, if this is a specific neighborhood assembly, then we will be looking at a new neighborhood list. And then finally, we've also been in an interesting exploration with a couple of orgs, and we're not quite yet ready to let the cat out of the bag. So we're just going to call this special assembly. But this assembly may be kind of focused on a current exploration that we're undergoing. And again, the assembly I'm talking about is an October, November assembly. We're definitely having an arts portion. The overarching assembly may be a new neighborhood, or may actually just have a special focus. So these are what potentially we have to review over the near future to decide what we focus on. And then just really quickly, just to say how we decide, there isn't a tight absolute frame there. Really the decision making is just looking at what's happening now, what has happened already. I would say it's a very context heavy decision. So for example, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, as I said, business to business emerged just based on what we're already working with and what felt appropriate in the moment, but that could change. And then finally, the last thing we'd like to talk about again, and we talked about this last week, but it is really important. We do really want to emphasize this as often as we can and as much as we can. And I think this helps to answer your question, Lady, are the personalized investment plans. And so I'll kick it back to Sierra for that.
Thank you, Nia. It's raining here, so you might hear like a soft pitter patter. But we do have another opportunity for y'all to name BIPOC businesses that you love in your neighborhoods and across Boston. And that's the personalized investment plan that is in your member portal. My words, in your member portal. So if you log into your member portal, there will be a little button that says personalized investment plan. I'm going to drop the link into the chat right now. And you will have to log in, unfortunately, to access this because it is in our CRM. But, remember your password, save it, please, do all those things. Our goal is that every voting member creates a personalized investment plan, which will feed into the neighborhood and citywide investment plans of the future. And this will be an ongoing thing. It's going to be rolling. We're going to have this throughout the years. Someone asked last week how many you can do. One per your personal membership cycle. So if you started in August, do one before August. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Is there anything else that I should mention?
Sorry, thank you. I was just getting ready to respond to Jamie. Jamie said she has to drop off. So thank you, Jamie. Yeah, no, so I think you covered it. And hopefully, lady, this answers your question. If you go to the personalized investment plan form, and actually this should answer the other person's question too, just about exactly what an investment plan is. But if you go to that form, we ask you, I believe we ask you name 5 businesses in your neighborhood. We ask you to name your business, name 5 businesses in your neighborhood. And then we also say name 5 businesses outside of your neighborhood. So in that form, you're able to start to, contribute to a neighborhood investment plan for your specific neighborhood, as well as to a citywide investment plan. And we also ask you, I believe, to list 3 needs. And we ask you to tell us why. We try to message very clearly. They should be BIPOC businesses. And as Sierra said, this is rolling. And so you'll see in parentheses, it says assembled 2021 till. Our frame is we've opened up personalized investment plans in February. And so we're thinking each kind of collection cycle ends when we do a new assembly. So for example, the collection cycle for this year's personalized investment plans would be from February 18th, 2021 to either October or November 2021. And then that's a list that we're then, and actually I shouldn't say that's a list, that's multiple lists because people are in different neighborhoods. But so then from there we have multiple neighborhood lists and we have a citywide list that then goes into this potential investment plan category. And we suss through, what we want to prioritize. And again, that's a pretty context-based decision. I see a chat. Okay, yep, Sierra, you said also needs, great, thank you. So I'll stop here and I'll stop the share and open it up for questions, feedback, reflections, boundaries.
I have a question about the personal investment plan. And I feel like I know the answer to it, but I just want to make sure that I'm thinking correctly. When you're encouraging folks to do these plans, I assume that you would hope that the businesses that they are trying to invest in are ones that meet your standards. Yes? Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to need to do some researching.
Okay. Well, what do you want to think out loud a little bit, Kelsey? What are you thinking?
Yeah. So I live in Dorchester, right near UMass JFK. And I think part of what I'm trying to think through is that I don't actually spend a lot on things. And so I'm like, what businesses am I going to now that I could potentially shift? And trying to think about specifically what ones are in my neighborhood, because I do think that a lot of where I spend dollars, it's very random. Yeah, so I'm just thinking out loud with that. And I feel like most of my investments are just going to be restaurants because it feels like that's all I'm spending my money on these days. But yeah, so just thinking out loud.
I appreciate that, Kelsey. Thank you. And also Sierra put something in the chat that I neglected to mention, which is important. So what we've also done too with these personalized investment plans that's new is we've put a space for startups. So definitely we were, just thinking of the impact of the pandemic. Some businesses have closed. Some people have had, they've seen needs emerge that weren't necessarily so apparent before. So yeah. Claudia asked, yeah, go ahead, Sierra.
Claudia asked, do we have a guidebook? Can you say more about that, Claudia?
Yeah, I was just thinking that like I work in an archive, and recently I came across like an old Zagat, I don't know how you pronounce it, guidebook, and it, you know, for different cities and stuff like that. And I know we have like our Small Business Alliance section and stuff like that, but do we have like a guidebook, like kind of speaking a little bit to what Kelsey was saying in terms of just like, oh, like you're out walking around in Boston and you're in this neighborhood, like, is there an easy way for us to sort of create an access point for people if they're like walking around in a neighborhood to be like, okay, like, oh, I'm around here, like what does Ujima say, like what are Small Business Alliances, or if there's like a way that we can, if we have that information, like restructure it so people can find it in that way or something. If that, does that make sense?
No, that
Oh,
totally.
yeah, totally.
We did
Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
right? Last summer.
What's up, Sierra? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, not yet. So we did do a one-off with YW Boston, where they created a summer guidebook last year. And so it included some Ujima businesses, and I can't remember who else they reached out to, but it was a compilation of different businesses from different networks. And I think we submitted probably about 5 Ujima businesses. But yeah, so it was a one-off situation, not kind of an ongoing thing. And of course, you know about our directory, but yeah. No. I think that's cool, actually. So I predict that the business support team will be all over that. Was there something else you wanted to test, Sierra?
It goes on the list of things that we want to invest time in.
Exactly. And then Abby said, I'm happy to help. I do stuff a lot. I do that stuff a lot for work. Abby, are you on the business support team? You're muted, Abby.
The phrase of 2021, right? In 2020.
Right.
No, I'm not. So I actually joined just a few months ago during the pandemic. And so I've actually been finding it a little hard to make the connections to join a team. And I had my eyes on the arts organization team, but I'm happy to help like whenever and however.
Well, we have a surprise for you because it is now 7:15. So I'm going to ask Johnny to stop recording so we can tell you what the surprise is. It's going to be great.